everyone, today is Monday, September 17th, and this video is actually going to be titled A Response to the Muslim World's response to offenses that were actually created from some kind of film. It was actually brought to my attention that there is some activity that's happening that's related to stuff that was perpetuated by the Western world. First of all, one of the things from my position is that I am a non-religion person, and how I came to actually inform myself about that position was I actually did spend many years also looking into what the hell this thing called religion is. I developed my perspectives from experiential data as well as observational data, and also looked into how, for example, women wrote about their experiences with religion and religion violence. And informing myself about this thing called religion, I also made connections to, for example, this religion thing related to patriarchy violence. So I informed myself based on a couple different things, and I don't know how people inform themselves when they get involved in something called religion. From my perspective, it's actually a kind of fraternity. With respect to this stuff that's happening, from what was conveyed to me, was that it was said that some kind of film was made, and for example, the various persons from the Islam world are very, very offended, and they're attacking all the USA embassies, and there's a lot of sort of this instability, I guess, in sort of the Middle Eastern areas of the world. And when I heard this situation being conveyed, I just thought to myself, this is the reason why we need to stop this fucking thing called intellectual violence. For those filmmakers, now I haven't looked into anything yet, and I don't even care to even give that film advertising, because one of the problems with things like that is that people who actually produce things like this, like if you're actually going to produce something like that, produce it, but also have people from that community producing a counter to that, and have them both available at the same time, so that you actually start engaging people's ability to think flexibly and also to connect to something within themselves. If you actually look at the history of, for example, a lot of things that have been developed and distributed to the masses from the Western perspective. Now, by Western perspective, I mean by this thing called Global North. And why in the world you would even split up the planet to say, okay, there's this and that, is beyond me, because culturally and spiritually, we don't even think like that. We are just as magical and mysterious as the universe. So to, for example, the Muslim comrades out there, I want to say, you know what, I'm very, very happy you guys are actually standing up for some kind of dignity and justice. I can't even believe some of the stuff that I have actually read about just these stereotypes around, well, for example, if there's one incident, then the entire Muslim world are, supposed to be the same. And as a matter of fact, I want you guys to know something. I absolutely can't stand Christianity, and I can't stand anything related to patriarchal religion. But how I actually learned about the Islam faith, and personally I'm not interested in following any type of Islam or Muslim or nothing. I'm not interested in that, because you can actually have friends that are different from you, and non-religion. Was I actually learned from a friend who is now in Oman. And one of the things that she said to me was, you know, in her religion, the other person comes first. So they're not about this ego and whatnot. And she actually introduced me to how this community is very, very compassionate and very, very organized. Um, they don't look into things in a way to hurt people. And, she did come to me and, want to introduce me to her religion, but I told her straight up, I'm just not interested in that stuff because it doesn't work for me. And she was okay with it, and we're still friends. So I'm saying this to say that, you know what, I actually have a lot of respect for the way that your community is organized. And it's so sad to even see like all this stuff around, you got to pay this allegiance to, ignorance. You know, a colleague actually who I bumped into a couple years ago, she said to me that she actually had to get her name changed. And this is in the Canadian state. She actually had to get her name changed because of the level of dehumanization she went through because she had a Muslim name. And she was actually very interested in teaching, and what they did was they basically shipped her out to, I don't know, some remote area, and they put her into this Catholic school experience. And she said it was the most degrading and the most dehumanizing, that she said, you know what, she had to actually go to black feminism and read stuff from black feminism to try and make sense of this stuff. And then she asked me for some texts, and I just gave her some suggested sources related to black feminism, but also encouraged her to, develop something that works for her as well. So I'm saying this to say that yes, we're very in tune with, for example, this I don't even know what to call it, but it's violence. It's not even intellectual, but it's an ideological violence that becomes operationalized through film. And apparently, actors and stuff in this production are saying that things were totally taken out of context. Well, if you actually read the script, then why didn't you speak up and say, you know what, something is wrong here? Because you know what the influences are. And then there's other actors that don't give a shit. Actors should be walking away from this stuff and saying, you know what, this is just too violent. Because what is the purpose of all this? If we're actually going to produce this, then you know what, also produce a counter. For those of you in the Western Hemisphere, it's so important for other parts of the world as well to know that, you know what, where did this fucking thing called Western Hemisphere come from? Second, it's important for others to know that, you know what, we're also on the same page when we think about sort of, deconstructing and destabilizing these systems that create these types of violences. Me personally, you never solve violence with violence. We actually come from a very peace-oriented perspective. And when you actually approach things with peace, then you know what, you get these collaborations that are very beautiful. Now, we can also look at historical examples where, for example, these people called colonizers or whatever, through these missionary things, they actually thought it was okay to go to a different place and say, oh, we have peace in the form of civilizing you. And then, of course, for example, using the Canadian Aboriginal experience, using and operationalizing dehumanization through, for example, these things called residential school systems. This is a very, very, very orchestrated, it's a very, very strategic way to not only do things related to mass murders, but also assert a very, very low level of self-esteem, as well as something that clearly has no soul. One thing about us is we have some soul. You guys that do this shit, why didn't you guys actually check your ethics? Why? if you actually did an ethics check, so you know what one of the things you would have said is, you know what is the purpose of all this? You're aggravating a whole community, and the way you orchestrated this thing, I guess, around, I won't even mention it to give it advertising, but I find it so fucking disrespectful, it's not even funny. You have, for example, racialized communities that have been dehumanized through, for example, there's the Black Holocaust, right? And then you still have these practices related to stuff related to that. You have unemployment. You have the trafficking of, for example, racialized women into the sex trade. And then what about these, like, for example, Caucasian feminist people? What are you guys doing about your institutionalized whiteness? So two comrades out there in the, of the Islam faith, keep on. We're watching all this stuff and saying this is just so ridiculous, I mean, I've even heard situations where, ignorant people actually go up to a person wearing a hijab or some kind of identifier that's related to the Islam faith, and they get violent with them. So you should pick up the phone and call the police and charge them for assault. Why are the police not assaulting their own? Or sorry, arresting their own? Why do the police look all the same? And it's not to get after, police and stuff, but it's also to get after the problem with policy that actually perpetuates things related to nepotism, things related to ignorances, and things related to unethical checks. One piece of me says, these people fucking deserve every fucking thing that they get. Because you know what? It is so fucking cruel what they do. So friggin' cruel. Just sitting with the community and listening to some of their stories is just fucking disgusting. But also seeing some from the community oppressing us is also very fucking disgusting. So where do you draw the line between all this stuff? Some people like to provoke reaction, right? I see sort of how this media thing works, and quite frankly, I said, I will not even do an interview with them, because they haven't even changed their practices for at least the last, can we say 100 years? And what media are we talking about, right? So we have to give thanks to, for example, alternative medias like this forum, as well as other ways to, distribute a message. Culture. We don't need Caucasianized stuff to get our message out. We do it in different ways. You guys gotta stop this violence. It's called whiteness violence. You gotta stop this shit. And it's very ideological. It's people from the university world as well that is creating this stuff. To the Muslim comrades out there, my respect to you, man. And to those people out there promoting this notion of whiteness, you gotta check that shit. You gotta start decolonizing from that stuff. You gotta actually pause and say, you know what? Why are we doing this? Why? What's the outcome of this stuff? Well, if it's not acceptable to ourselves, why is it acceptable to other people? I have some videos about images of black women and images of black in film. We're not sluts. We don't have our fucking breasts hanging out. We don't have these Christianized things where we have fucking straight hair or whatever. Using these chemical things that are actually connected to billion-dollar industries in Asia that do nothing to benefit us. It makes us very sick. It actually contaminates our blood. It affects the whole, for example, melanated biophysical system and spiritual system. How many of us actually have discussions about this kind of stuff? So to the Muslim world, I don't want to say sympathies, it's not the right word, but my respect, let me tell you, because you are one community. You guys actually care. You think about other people, and for the ones that I have met, I am not interested in joining that religion stuff, but you know what? I have learned, and I'm telling you, from my friend who actually has relocated to Oman, um, my respect. That's one powerful Muslim sister, let me tell you. I am very, very disgusted to even hear that something like this would be perpetuated about the community. And the violence, me personally, never, ever, ever meet violence with violence as a solution, because that perpetuates colonization that actually imposed and hurt our communities. So my respects, and please do send your comments and your thoughts, and let's certainly collaborate on solutions. I fucking can't stand this stuff. I mean, the imaging of black women as sluts in film. What the fuck is that? We're not fucking sluts. We're actually very, very beautiful women. All natural, flexible thinking. But it's more than just thinking. We have a core. And our core is actually pure because it's connected to the universe. Thanks for watching.